Camden Town, a 16-year-old teen DJ, slashing and burning to Idlewild. It's totally awesome, man.
I remember the first time you met was in Camden.
Camden Town.
Mm-hmm. You were with the enemy and you...
No, yeah, I had just gotten off stage at the Old Vic.
You charged into our club and then got up on a football table and then we danced.
Yes.
I think it's my memory.
But also that very day, I had been pretty much arrested at Heathrow, gone to the Old Vic and sang The Bitch Is Back with Sir Elton John, endured Kevin Spacey overhearing him say, "She lowers the tone." Whoa! That was a bad one. Having a childhood memory of Elton being dressed as like Donald Duck and saying it to someone and going, "We have the costume." And then I got to dress up as Donald Duck, sing The Bitch Is Back, walk by Peter O'Toole, and he said, "That's the sexiest duck I've ever seen." So when I was done, I was like, "Can I meet some kids?" And the enemy took me to meet you and Murray.
Wow, you were the high point of our day, but obviously you'd had a full day.
I think that we went to the biggest mattress in Covent Garden or something, the Covent Garden Hotel. Like, yeah, I got you guys some press. It was good.
So we've been talking about LA stories all weekend. We've been trying to get beyond the traditional like Hollywood narrative. We've had all kinds of amazing women speak, but no one has more Hollywood stories than Courtney now. But when did you first go to Hollywood? What was your first kind of experiences of that town or Los Angeles?
Well, okay. I bounced through. I was West Coast. I was born in San Francisco. I would see my mother and my family. They were had moved to Eugene, really kind of stroppy, no shaving of the legs and the Birkenstocks. But I'm talking 72 and very ashamed, and I was, and everyone looked like shit and smelled like shit. I just hated it. But we'd get to the airport in LA, and I'd see very attractive women that were glamorous moving through. And then, at some point, I went to New Zealand, I went to boarding school, blah, blah, blah. But then I decided to go to Japan and be a stripper. And I had to come to LA and
Where everyone goes when they want to.
Yeah, no, it was some sort of thing with being trafficked to Japan and turning my passport over. But me and this girl came here for 2 days and went to the, where the passport is, and gave this guy, he stamps the passports, and we go to Tokyo and, do our thing. And then, went on about my life. And also there was this whole runaways fixation I had with wanting to be, a bad kid and look like Cherie Curry and all this shit. So I went through all that. And then I became a then I went to Liverpool, and then I decided, went to London and did all that. But then about 83, there was I had my very first real boyfriend, and his name was Jeff. And I met him in San Francisco, and we came to Malibu, which is where he was from. And he's not fancy Malibu. He was 6 miles up Latigo in a trailer Malibu. And
surf in Malibu?
No, he didn't even surf.
Even?
No, he didn't surf. He didn't skate. No, he did lots of drugs. That's what he did. And but risk drugs, like skate drugs,
so that's
surf
good
drugs.
he didn't surf.
Say what?
So that's probably good he didn't surf.
No,
dangerous.
but a lot of those guys that surfed did those drugs, speed and heroin and stuff. And big skater culture, Dogtown, but Malibu. And the thing with Malibu, you guys, is that right before the Olympics in '84, that kind of Malibu, there was no high school there. So all the guys went to Santa Monica High, and he brought his mother. His mother was and still is a costume designer, and real worker amongst working Teamster, films. And she had been Faye Dunaway's costume designer for many years, and she had done Network, and she had done The Eyes of Laura Mars, and Mommy Dearest, and from her I learned a lot about how to behave around, above the line celebrities. And in fact, how to be one. But that didn't come till much later. That was later. I was just calling and learning. And so then, at some point, Jeff, he was friends with the Sheens, which is like Emilio Estevez, his brother Renee, the sister, and I can't remember her name, and Charlie, and Martin and Janet. And they lived on Point Dume. And like, look, I basically knew who Martin Sheen was, and I was really freaked out. Like, I can fuck with like Darby Crash or Jeffrey Lee Pierce from the Gun Club, but or Ted Nugent, but Martin Sheen, like I don't want to get out of the car. So, like we went to Martin Sheen's house, and I mean, oh my God, like it's in Rob Lowe's book too. I just finished most of my book, and I had to check Rob's book to reference. Like they were all there. Like every one of those guys from Malibu, Sean Penn, Chris Penn. No, they weren't Brat Pack. That's based on a really bad People story from back in the day. There were no girls for one thing that I remember other than oh God, I forget her name. Anyway, the sister. I mean, Chad Lowe, Rob Lowe, Downey hung with Renee because they were really into ska and he kind of rewrites it as like Joy Division, but cool, Robert. And there was this guy Brett Black. There was a guy named Drew who was in the Surf Punks. And then they brought their weird friend Tom Cruise with bad teeth. Like it went on. It was like they were all there. It was like being Zelig. It was so fucking weird. And the other thing with them is when I would drive with Bernadine into my first film set, which I'll get to in a second. On one occasion I saw, Martin walking down the PCH with a golf club and a rosary, because he's a very deeply, devout person, and it's like this real community out there, and it really always stuck with me that, Malibu is a really special place. So my seduction into LA, I'd been into reading magazines about like Cherie Currie and Joan Jett in Hollywood, but it was in Malibu. And my first film set was like, we'd get up like 4:30 in the morning, and she took me to the Osterman weekend, which was Sam Peckinpah's movie. And I didn't have any sense that Sam was like, anything special. He was just super grumpy. And like, I didn't like really work on that set at all. I like helped her a little. And like once we bought him groceries, and he lived in Paradise Cove. And I remember him having like, not stuff we were allowed in Eugene, Oregon for sure. Like he had like fake mayonnaise, Miracle Whip, and gin, and white bread, Wonder Bread. That shit's really good, but I wasn't allowed that growing up. And he had this pills. He had amazing pills they don't make anymore that I took. And she was really, she was like she was with Faye, with Sam. Like she really like served him in a way that helped him do his job better. And it was like this really different level on a film set of a relationship that I'd ever seen. I still don't even see it in rock and roll very much.
That's a strong start for LA stories.
Yeah. Sorry, boom. Yeah, bring them in hard. Might as well.
Like at that stage, did you like want to act? Did you even imagine that's what were you thinking?
Well, I've always had a, yeah, of course. Yeah. Like, ever since in Eugene, I saw, I've really never missed the Academy Awards except one time. I dated this one fucking guy, threw a tantrum on the Oscar night, and I was like, yeah, no, he's dead. Like, that's it. Fuck him. And I don't even rate him now, like, fuck that guy. But I don't care how sucky it is. Like, I watch the Oscars. Like, that's my thing, right? So, I watched Tatum O'Neal. She won an Oscar. She was 9. I'm like, I'm going there. I'm going to go there. So, yeah, I've just always had, like, a savant kind of, not realistic relationship to fame and celebrity and acting and the arts and, in some ways it really paid off, in other ways it, like, didn't. So, it was... So yeah, good to be delusional when you're a kid, especially.
You were talking about how you watched like Amadeus like 10 million times, almost managed to manifest Milos?
I don't think, yeah, I think that's kind of a delusional statement that I manifested Milos Forman from watching Amadeus 20 times, but fuck if I didn't. And you know, weirder, I was in this, when I was like 11, 12, I was a ward of the state of Oregon, and we were in this place called Hillcrest. And it was next to a place called Fair, where he shot Cuckoo's Nest. And so on the night that I didn't understand the mores or the cues or how to respond correctly, but Milos Forman and Woody Harrelson, on my like third callback for The People versus Larry Flint, they brought me to the Palms. And there were all these like, and Oliver Stone was there, who was one of the producers on that movie, and Jim Brooks, and you know, all these people. But then there were all these fancy men from Columbia Studios. And none of them, and all of them had been like, I don't know, like I'm Mark Canton, like some of these, like, over my dead body, is Courtney Love getting this role, right, kind of thing. But I didn't know that yet. And I said to Milos, I said to him, oh, you know, when I was in juvenile hall, I used to be next to where you shot Cuckoo's Nest. And he took me aside, and he goes, I don't give a shit where you've been. He goes, don't talk about it in front of them. They like classy. That's what he said to me. I love that. And when I was really close to him. I was honored to be his friend. And he just didn't have fuss budget notions of American class. You know, his mother had died in Auschwitz. His father, his father had the KGB. Like, he had been in a fucking gulag with Václav Havel. Like, I mean, yeah, class, like what? But yeah, don't talk about being in jail in front of the fucking studio heads. That's a good note.
How did you even how did you even get to that kind of place where you knew him and met him from Hole to, you know, being considered for a big film like The People vs. Life, and obviously you've done Sid and Nancy and like.
I don't know.
Because in a way as well, it's like such. I mean, you're so fucking good in that film. You know?
Yeah.
I remember it so vividly, like to this day, it's like etched in my brain. Yes, clap. No, I'm like, and but yeah, that was such a crazy transformation.
Yeah.
People like, and then there was the backlash. Like, what was that?
Well, you know, think about that backlash for a second. It's still the 90s, and like, she's not really punk. I mean, fucking imagine that today. Like, right? Like, hello, like what? You're gonna give Lizzo shit because she was in Hustlers the other day? You know, nobody fucking cares anymore. But back then, it was like, oh, sell out, whoa, sell out. And I'm like, what? No, I sold out the Garden. What do you mean? There's no more tickets left. What? Sell out? No, shut up. You know, I don't fucking know. Yeah, so it wasn't just that performance, because, you know, Michael Houseman, who was Milos's line producer for pretty much most of his films, I heard this from, I think Michael told me, he teaches, or he taught at Columbia, he taught film, and he would tell the story about how, and it's a true story, Milos said to me, you know, you must not do drugs, you must stop doing drugs, and we shook on it. And I didn't do drugs. And, you know, that kind of flies in the face of, like, you know, 12-step and, you know, which I'm a big fan of, and, you know, other things, but I really just didn't do drugs. Like, I just didn't. And, oh yeah, he was like, and you must lose 30 pounds, so I did that too. And it was like a lot to do, you know, for that role. And when I remember, like, a lot of girls were up for that thing, you know, like, I remember sitting next to Ashley Judd, you know, like, and, you know, and like, yeah, there were a lot of ladies up for it. And I walked into, I think he was, Sunset Marquee, and he was watching a Lakers game. He loved the Lakers. And I didn't have a connection in my head, oh, this is Amadeus, this is Cuckoo's Nest, you know, Milos Forman, but I did, he didn't even look from the TV, he was smoking his fucking cigar. I was like, oh, shithead bastard, and I walked out. And I think, you know, I didn't really grovel for him, like, hello, Courtney, you know, like, that kind of thing. And somehow we just ended up being really close. And he, also the whole thing with the transformation, it was just, it was like physical. Like, the cut of a certain dress was the exact same as the cut of the other dress, it was just context had changed. Context had changed, you know, and the makeup was prettier. That's it, you know, like, context. It was sort of like postmodern, I don't know, you know, it was like a weird, like, almost like punking the world in a way, like, well wait, all that's different is there I was at the Vanity Fair party, and there I'm at the band. Oh, but wait, once I'm like dirty and now I'm clean. It's like kind of stupid but funny. You know, like whatever, I mean, I got the joke. But yeah, the performance of it was the important part to me, and that was like, oh, it was divine. It was so great. It was really fun.
Because it must have been quite a kind of crazy balancing act there as well, because then after People versus Larry Flint, to be back in a whole celebrity skin.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard people call Celebrity Skin like the sort of love-hate record
Oh, really?
Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Is that how it was formed?
Yeah. I
Your
think so.
reaction to that sort of experience?
Yeah. I think it was like, you know, this is before the Peppers did their LA record, and I always am mad that the Chili Peppers did what the fuck, Californication after Celebrity Skin. But, you know, and everyone, you know, obviously Don Henley wrote Hotel California before I ever picked up a fucking pen to write about the place, and Raymond Chandler and everyone, you know, everyone in the world has written about LA, you know, Eve Babbitts and, you know, Joan Didion and all of us, you know. But, God damn it, you know, my voice was going to be heard in the Middle So, you know, I just really wanted to talk about water in the songwriting, really, you know. And I don't know, Chinatown kept coming up for me, like I started getting into the water wars and like, you know, this guy named Mike Davis wrote a book called City of Quartz about Los Angeles. It's fucking great, that book. People call him like the Oliver Stone of Los Angeles. It's great, like the first chapter is like this fucking Johnson & Johnson era in Pasadena and Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard, and they all like basically start a fire. I mean, it's a really good book. And then the second book is called Ecology of Fear, and the fourth chapter is The Case for Letting Malibu Burn. It's like, totally, it's so good. And so like, you know, I got really, you know, I went heavy on like LA lore, and you know, and like I was just sort of waiting for the nature gods to like give me poetry, and they, you know, did.
Yeah.
And my band was real good, and you know, I remember going to Sharon Stone's house, and she was like, Sharon Stone. And, you know, I was really scared of her. And like, she had this beautiful bed, and next to one bed were her ball gowns, or her, you know, event gowns, and the next were her, was her normal closet. And it had that thing that, I'm sure she won't mind me telling you this, but she had that thing that was like, had a dry cleaner, like, and she just was standing there, she goes, you're too hip. You're too hip. You need to lessen the hip. And yeah, I love this. And she like pressed the fucking thing and comes up with this perfect navy Valentino gown. Woo! And loaned it to me for the Gold Globes. Like, she's so cool. Yeah, man. Like, so cool. And then I saw her in the line. She was dating a studio executive at the time. It was like a phase of hers. She's like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm nervous. She's like, Barry, give her a Xanax. I mean, she's so cool. Look at Sharon. God. And then I remember like one night, you know, she called me, she was in San Francisco filming something, was like, do you want to talk about boys? I'm like, I was so scared of her, Sharon. I don't get scared of many people, but in 1996, I was scared of Sharon Stone for sure. And, you know, in a good way, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I didn't get nominated for an Oscar. And she called me at 6 a.m. on the day I didn't get nominated. I didn't, you know, whatever, it was fine. But she called me, she's like, Orson Welles didn't get nominated either. Like, first one to call, the first one was Sharon. I was like, wow, she's a good sport. And I like her. Yeah, I don't even know what I was saying. Oh, so back to like putting that kind of movie starry energy into rock and roll. And I was really built for rock and roll. Like rock and roll is what my default. Like I can do rock and roll any day. But like being a pretty skinny movie star, that's like. Are you Milos? Are you a Milos? Are you that good? Yeah, no, fuck it. I'm not fucking with you. You know what I mean? Like, you're some fucking, you know, sophomore. You know what I mean? Like, I remember like, you know Natasha Lyonne, right? Yeah, so we have this one experience of just this one director. Hers was, you know, she should have shared hers publicly, but, you know, I'm in a lot of therapy and part, you know, to not share in the town square many of my, you know, travails. But this one dude, he just sucked. And yeah, just a fucking bush league, you know. And if they're not gonna be great, and they're gonna like talk about your sexuality, or they're gonna like hit on you, and then get in there with that shit, that get in there, and that fucking demoralize you, and make you small, and make me small, you know. I mean, I went out with this actor, Edward Norton, for a long time. He's a great actor. We were from such different worlds, you know. I want to say he's like the 7th, and he went to Yale, and he's great, and he comes from a very fancy but good philanthropic family, very ethical and moral, and everything is integrity all the fucking time. Sorry. He's great. He's really funny. No, he's funny.
Good to have a yin and a yang.
Yeah, and at one point he said in his car, because his grandfather built a town in Maryland, and I said, wow, that's a lot of, chutzpah that your grandpa had to build this town. He goes, you and Keith Richards, you guys took a lot of risks, but I took more to do my job. And I was just like, wow, and that was that. But he was great to hang out with, and I bring this up because that more than once he would pick me up, because he was great, he had a lot of integrity, as I just said. He would pick me up from these meetings, because I went straight to like, from generals, studio executives, to specifics. And I was wanted, everywhere, in like very like A-list kinds of films. And I would be crying, because the way that these men would talk to me would be incredible. Incredible. The things that I would, hear would be outrageous.
Like, what would they say?
Okay, one guy, I'm not gonna say studio or anything, but one guy, well, you can source him by this. He took me into his office, and he was like eating, and he was like disgusting. I don't know who he was. Maybe he's super powerful now, and I'm fucked. But anyway, he goes, look, I put tits on Uma, and he puts on the Avengers with Ray Fiennes and Uma, and like he had made her wear some suit with an ass in it, or he had said so. Who knows? But he made me watch and telling me gross shit, and I had to hear this and hear this and hear this, and talking about other actresses, and talking, and I'm pretty positive he was lying, but I had to watch this shit.
I mean, you called out Harvey Weinstein when no one else was on the red carpet.
If you watch that clip, I'm terrified that I did it, I remember going home and getting in trouble,
What was the kind of backlash?
Yeah, you shouldn't have said anything about him, we all know, and we all knew about Harvey in '96.
I mean, it takes balls to, it's always the people that seem to be like the villains at the time often turn out to be like ones that are saying the true story.
I mean, he never did it to me. He did it to a lot of people. Edward had this friend, or his parents that were friends with this kid's parents, and this girl in like '96 called. You remember voicemails? You guys are too young, but there were voicemails, and this girl's screaming like it's during lunch, and I'm like, living in my life, and this girl just was crying, and I answered the phone. I forget her name, but she was like 18, and she had come to Hollywood to be an actress, and she was a nice, clean girl from a nice, clean town in Maryland. She didn't know dirty, bad, whatever things. So when Harvey said to her, come to the Four Seasons or the Peninsula, that's the one he liked. Come to the Peninsula and come to a party at 11 in the morning, she did. And, she was crying, and it was horrible. It was a whole scene, and, and I was like, you have to drop out of this movie, and I made this whole stink about it, and, nothing could be done. What could we do?
I mean, you got to work with Milos again, though.
Yeah, that was great.
How was that experience? I mean, I love, there was the documentary Jim and Andy, where obviously Jim Carrey
of course,
revisiting that whole thing. And there's this clip where he's being Andy Kaufman and acting out, and he drops his trousers, and you walk in and you're just like, poof, and take your top off. And you're like, and I was like, there's not a lot of actresses that could have handled that.
I don't know if anyone saw it. Did anybody see that Jim and Andy thing, that Spike? Yeah, it's good, right? So, I was like, of course I will do it for Milos, but I was really down. I was like, I'm just going to play the girlfriend. And I remember, this is super glamorous, going to tell you, I remember Warren Beatty came to my house, and he had this and he's beautiful, and he had this beautiful Mercedes, and a scarf, and he was like, I'm doing an intervention. I'm like, on what? He's like, you're just like Julie. Christy. It's like Christy. I was like, what? He was so beautiful. And he was doing an intervention on me, saying I wouldn't play girlfriends. I'm not playing girlfriend. And, of course I did it, and I did it with gusto. But in terms of Jim being nutty on that film, I didn't even notice. You know, I didn't. And Milos didn't really notice either because he named his twin sons Jim and Andy. So, you know, clearly he had no problem with it at all. And we didn't notice. We knew he was like up to some shenanigans when he would do Tony Clifton and he would come in smelling of weird cheese. And he did that. And I know one of the makeup artists really didn't like him. And she had like 3 Oscars. So she was like, you know, she wouldn't fuck with below the neck or whatever it was the union says. But yeah, he was a big pain to some of the union guys. But yeah, acting with him was a treat.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So how do you think you still live in Hollywood now?
Yeah.
How has it sort of changed you over these years? The atmosphere of the place.
Well, I mean, you have to be really tough. You know, I'm a Buddhist, and we have this one district. It's called Fountain, and it literally encompasses like, you know, like where the chateau is, and like Hollywood, and yeah, it's just like, you know, the women that have stuck it out in that one neighborhood, man, they get tough, and they get like leathery tough, and it's just like, you know, people come there and they get their fucking dreams just shattered, you know. But then you know, some people don't, you know. It's like, I don't know, you have to somehow have a winning ticket. And the winning ticket generally to me is like, there's this great thing in the New York Times. It was a review on the Tarantino movie, and it talked about spiritual discipline and not witchcraft, but like, what do we call it? Superstition. And how, you know, we don't, on the West Coast, we don't really have that kind of erudite education. We don't have our kind of like, you know, I had a loft in Soho. I did that life. And, you know, I just even seeing that film, the Quentin one, I was like, wow, I was so proud of like coming to fucking Hollywood and living here and somehow surviving. You know, like after seeing that film, but I just felt like, yeah, that spiritual discipline has to be part of your code. I feel, you know, like, all the guys that I used to know in Malibu who've, you know, risen and fallen and risen and fallen again, you know, and then risen, you know, they've gone through a lot of shit, you know, and like, I feel like, you know, the only way to master the fucking dragon of scariness is through some sort of spiritual discipline, for sure.
I mean, because you must feel like you're quite kind of almost like etched into Los Angeles, because you've had so many iconic, you know, even from like Jumbos to
Yeah, no, Jumbo's Clown Room. You know, I went to Hustlers the other night with my friend Courtney Hoffman, and she's like, and then after we're gonna go to Jumbo's Clown Room. And I'm like, yeah, no. And she didn't know, and so I sent her the wiki. It was like, Courtney Love, Jumbo's Clown Room, like married. And yeah, so you know, and then we saw Hustlers, and I'm like, yeah, no, it's not Scores. Like, it's different. It's still like down low and dirty. And the reason that I started stripping down here in Hollywood at Jumbo's is because it was the only one that was in the Yellow Pages and had that very curious name. And it was also way down on the shitty part of Hollywood, and it was on Winona Street. I kept thinking of Winona Ryder, you know. So that, you know, it still is there. And I think it survives simply because of the crazy name.
And because the strippers have the best characters. Because you don't have to take your top off.
No, you don't. Yeah, well, you don't have to go all nude, right? Yeah, Crazy Girls too. Yeah, you know, that's the same family though. So not as Jumbo's. I also worked at the Seventh Veil, but that's nude. And then around the corner is Crazy Girls, and that's the same family as also the Body Shop. So it's like kind of the whole town is rigged a little with the stripping thing.
So in your adventures in Hollywood, you must have come across a lot of, you know, from the Sharon Stones and...
They're not Sharon Stones.
Well,
yes.
Who are the other kind of inspirational women that you've experienced in Hollywood? That
Ladies. Oh, well, you know, Bernadette, I would say like Jeff's mom, and I would say like those wardrobe ladies, they're fucking tough, you know, and union ladies, like, you know, one of the great thing was like to drive in. She worked at Paramount Costume before it sold to Western, because there used to be a big costume house at Paramount, and to drive in the Van Ness gate at Paramount and be like, you know, 19 and be like, fuck it, one day I'm going in the front. And then to get to go in the front, like, what? But yeah, to live and dwell, you know, in what was, you know, what's basically a woman's job, which on sets is still costume. And, you know, all these things that I learned, and, you know, what a peplum was, what a shoulder is. We did this, it wasn't all like superstar fun, it was like what's her name, Rita Moreno for a cruise ship. And I remember like a cruise, like she stiff Bernadine, like she never paid. It was like, stuff like that, and like the really hard-working stuff, like, people that could really endure women a fitting, and like in this kind of great Edith Head tradition, and growing and knowing not to fuck with anybody on a set, like ever, and seeing other people that were new be rude, or they were trying to be polite, but they didn't know how, and maybe they had lived such privileged lives that perhaps their language, to the lowers, wasn't quite formed, if you know what I mean. And, I got that from working around women in costume.
Because costume's been such an important part of your Hollywood journey.
Yeah.
From, reinvention and the play and everything. Do you still kind of get a kick out of this whole performance?
Of fashion?
Yeah.
I'm actually, I'm moving to London for a few months to do clothes with my partner there and write some songs, but I'm literally right now reading a book called The Thames, a biography. I'm on to another body of water. Fuck the, ocean for now. I'm leaving it just for a few months. But, it's like, I love the whole sartorial, shit show of it. I just, the one thing I have not found 5 people in fashion that are in the whole juggernaut that are happy. I actually have, that's something I haven't. No, I know, but I think I can crack the code. Because I'm tough, and I stuck it out in like leather hide, fucking rawhide Hollywood for a long time, I figured like, well, because I like to dress people, it's fun. I'm not trying to be Comme des Garçons and reinvent the fucking wheel. I just want to make pretty dresses and see how it goes.
You're trying to be Kanye and like reinvent fashion.
Yeah, and I love him too. So, like I love him. Like Kanye, like he inspires me. I started going out to Sunday service, Kanye's thing, and like it's like the one place, like Rick Rubin has to sit behind me. I love the seating there. It's great. Like Orlando behind me. It's so cool. I love Kanye. He's great. Like he's like my soul. I would love that guy.
Would that be an appropriate time to say, can I come with you next time?
Yeah. They are really good. They trust who I'm gonna bring. Like it's good. Like I'm very. I brought 3 female directors, and we got out, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, this is New Hollywood, Kanye, and he was like, yeah, and like, it was great.
Oh, cool, where was I?
I did. The car was full.
Okay, next time.
Sorry.
No pressure, but you did say you would. Did you ask me for it now?
Oh no, this was a while ago, right? You forgot to remind me.
Okay.
You did. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot.
What I've really enjoyed, obviously known you a long time and always been such a fan of like your work, music and acting, but seeing, you played Yola Fest the other day, and seeing a whole new generation of young women and how they respond to you, and seeing my goddaughter like with you on an enemy, and like, and how fun that is to see that you still kind of endure as a kind of symbol of defiance, and something that is bold and that hasn't kind of dissipated. Is that invigorating to you, like when you're playing Yola Fest and you have like this very intergenerational audience?
Well, yeah, for a couple of reasons. I hadn't played in 2 years. The last time I played was the opening for Lana Del Rey, who's like half my age, and that was a whole weird thing. And I opened for Lana, and I thought she probably sucked or something, and then I got off the tour and like, she's great. Like, she's such a good artist. Like, what? I was like, oh yeah, I'll do this. It was some trade, it was some flesh, peddling, meat market nonsense. Like, do this one solid, and she'll do this solid. I'm like, was involved in some complex, I remember once I did a Basquiat. There's a movie, I don't think I've ever seen it. I remember feeling really fat that day. And I will tell you that 2 Basquiats and 2 Schnabels were involved in being traded to Mike Ovitz, I have heard, in the casting of me and Bowie. Like, this happened. I have heard. And shit like that, right? So shit happens on real high levels with like, I'll throw in a Bowie, whatever. And, I'll give you a Courtney. Oh, yeah, okay. And I'll get a sketch for that. but, you know, so I did this long thing, and I ended up with great respect for her, like, especially the shit she was getting at that point. And so I didn't, you know, I didn't want to go back to, like, sort of solo at, like, the House of Blues with some cold cuts. No. So that show, that Yola Dia, I didn't know what it was. My manager has you know, he has, like, a lot of women now. After saying he wouldn't, and now he has, like, Sia, and, like, he is great. Like, he's really good with women. And I didn't even know what Yola Dia was. It's mezcal, owned by women in the middle of Mexico. And it was a really good show. And in fact, it was great. And I forgot we were playing a little stage. So we were driving in the golf cart. I'm like, wow, civilization, look, there's a real stage. No. And I was like, this little stage. And I was a little. And, you know, I hadn't really taken care of my side of the street, cleaned it up on my band front. So there were things that were wrong internally because I also hadn't played, like, sober, you know, in ever, like off all pills, and, you know, there's no Xanax involved, there's no, you know, drinking and nothing. I'm sober, and you know, and that was great, you know, because in you know, in my sobriety thing, it's like some spiritual something is supposed to happen, and really would have, and I felt the potential for it happening. Like, I might be able to transcend. What a great audience to have all the, you know, what wonderful kids, lots of, you know, not really straight guys, like, doing a Foo Fighter or Metallica thing in that audience. You know, it was really cool. And no, it wasn't like festival, like, oh, girls on next. It wasn't that thing. So it was like a cool audience, a really good audience. And I felt bad that I didn't deliver all that I had. But hey, I hadn't played in 2 years, so I kind of gave myself a break. But yeah, it was a real honor. I liked it, and I really liked, because I had told someone, an British girl, a couple of nights before, I was like, yeah, I'm done with rock and roll. I'm gonna do fashion. And then I played this rock show, and I'm like, wow, I like my day job. No, it's good. You know, so I don't know. You know, I've only had like a year off that shit, and, like, you know, I don't even know. I don't know who I am. You know, it's like just finding out.
I mean, you've had a ringside seat for, like we were saying, for all these different types of Hollywood. Was there a point when you were just like, I'm done with this, when you wanted to leave? Is that when you went to New York, or?
Oh, you mean Hollywood? Left Hollywood?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hollywood's like the fucking boyfriend you go back to over and over and over again. Like, fuck you, no, fuck you. You know, no, fuck you. You know, it's like, I mean, it never ends. You know, it just doesn't. It's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go be a socialite in New York, and I'm gonna be in a townhouse. Yeah, come there. Okay, we don't need you. And then, like, I miss it. I'm gonna go back to the chateau and get a house. You know, I'm gonna get a loft this time, motherfucker. You know, whatever. It's like, yeah. Now I'm gonna go to London. I'm gonna go to London, but I'm, you know, and then I'll come back. And my rule is I'll come back to Malibu. That's my new rule. So.
I can't believe you're going to London in October.
I know. I'm driving here. October. I'm going October 10th. I'm driving here and I'm looking at my flat to let. And I'm like, yes, I get to say that sentence. Flat to let. With my letting agent.
You must have, you know, you've had a lot of adventures at the chateau.
Yeah.
What are some of your most memorable chateau moments?
No, it's all a narcotic mist. That's the whole point. Like, you know, I know the feng shui of the rooms. Like, 8's not good. I finally figured it out. 8's aren't good. 9's are in the courtyard. 4's face the sunset. 5's are over the pool. The bungalows, they hate you then. That's like, you don't want to be in a bungalow because either you're English and you like that sort of torture, or they hate you. You know,
English
like,
people do love the bungalow.
Yeah, English people like the fucking bungalow. I hate those things. And I remember me and Drew Barrymore had like this weird, when we were really close, we had a bungalow that I could see. Yeah, so yeah, but bungalows, yeah, no.
Does it, being around, you know, being in like Empire and these sort of new things. Well, you know, but are you sensing the industry is changing for real? Because, you know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, women in film and the new generation, and we have like great things like this.
Yeah.
But you really know a lot of people really like in the industry. Do you think it's going to change for real?
I don't know. Without really getting into it, I have a couple people that I know that I was really friendly with, had horrible Me Too situations happen to them. And, so that's a really complex thing to navigate. And then, I went in, I went as a producer on something, I went into a big, huge studio, and for a big, huge product. You know, it's just like, you know, big, right? Big A-list fucking thing. And like an event kind of thing that more is like a big, big thing now because things like it have made money. And, you know, and I knew I wasn't being heard. And there was one woman who'd been around, knocking around for like in the studio system that exists for 20 years or something. Yeah, she's like 60, cool, you know, and you know, and I knew I wasn't being heard. And I literally sat there talking about, you know, what happens to people when they enjoy their abortions? I mean, literally, like, because I wasn't being heard. Like, I just started saying obnoxious shit that, like, you know, super, you know, third wave, like, shit. Because when I got the list of writers and directors, oh my God. Like, it was just like, you know, could you be any more offensive and not listen to me, you know?
Do you have a project coming up directed by a woman? What's your next acting project?
No.
IMDb is a liar.
What did they say?
I don't know, it just said, to be announced, name, woman name.
No.
Okay. You're going to London.
No, you know, yeah, like a friend of mine, really good director, male. I just like, the energy, and I had some thing with a dentist and whatever. I decided not to do something, which is weird because I'm so ambitious. But it was like, yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, I don't want to fuck with something that was like super physical, lots of stamina to act in something. And I was just like, mostly it was down to this health thing. But yeah, you know, unless it was like going to be just juicy, chew the fucking scenery, I wasn't. Yeah.
When it wasn't the kind of negative Hollywood stuff, when you were like rocking around with Drew and everything,
yeah.
Did you kind of have those moments where you really felt like, you must have felt kind of like, we are on top of this?
Yeah, all the time. What are you talking about? Every 300 days I feel that way, like for the next 300 days. And then, you know, and this one, you're either sulking or you're gloating. I mean, really, you know, gloating because everyone has to kiss your ass, or sulking because you have to kiss some more out. I mean, that's kind of the way the place is. Like, you know, I mean, you know, but then there's some real poetry in it, but then, like, there isn't. It's, like, baldly horrible, you know, and, like, you know, there's so many broken dreams, and so, I mean, I know this, there was someone who I was briefly friends with, and, yeah, I was like, yeah, no, this doesn't work. Like, this kind of fringe-dwelling nonsense is not nutritional for anybody. And this person was like, are you going to the premiere? I'm like, I'm not in the fucking movie, I'm not going to the fucking premiere. And then this person's like, well, you know, blah, blah is best friends with blah, blah, Leo. I'm like, yeah, God, the Leo, like, yeah, you know, and, you know, I got the lawyer, Leo. I'm like, oh my God. And, you know, like that kind of shit, it just drives me nuts. I don't tolerate it, not in my life.
I mean, did you get a bit of a kick out of it when, you know, when you were...
When I was a kid, yeah. Yeah, but I always, through that great kind of education I had on Malibu of like, oh, this is how you approach Martin Sheen, or this is how you approach working hard, you know, at Paramount, or this is how you approach like a set, you know, or I was an extra tons of times, you know, and that was demoralizing, but we got $35 for it. And I found out later that that agent had taken, you know, she was getting 120 and keeping the rep, whatever, of all his punkers. But, you know, I've always had like kind of, I was taught well to have respect for people and people that are really, really big movie stars, you know. Just because you're my lover or my dad or you stole my graham cracker, it doesn't mean that you're not a really big movie star generating a shit ton of money over in that world, you know. Like, it's time to let the movie stars go be movie stars. Having been one, I can say that, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, leave me alone now. Get out of my eye line. As if you know Faye Dunaway lore, then you know that, maybe you don't because you're so young, but there's like a famous Faye Dunaway story that follows her around. It's like, get out of my eye line. So, you know, and I once did it. Someone was in my eye line on a little film, a killer film in New Jersey. And it was, who was in it? Oh God, anyway, Lily Taylor was in it, and a person playing her kid, Misha Barton played her kid, she was like 10, and I was this little kid, this girl was, she was just in my fucking eye line, and she was staring at me, and and the Faye thing I heard Faye Dunaway be a real bitch in my head, and I was like, could you get out of my eye line, please? I was really nice about it. You know, you can't be mean, you can't be mean. Like, I'm pretty mean. I mean, I have a friend, who's a Buddhist friend, he's like, you're so disagreeable, Courtney. I'm like, yeah, not on a set though. You know, like, I'm really not.
Did you stay friends with the Malibu set? Who
yeah, a lot of them, yes. Yeah, I did. You know, the crazy thing about that Malibu thing was that it was all the energy was directed to Charlie Sheen, like Charlie was the golden boy. And,
Twist.
yeah, twist, yeah. Yeah, and I read Rob Lowe's book, it was for me, I mean, I'm not saying it would be for any of you, but for me, it was really revelatory about things I had forgotten, you know, about that particular 1984-5 golden Malibu moment, you know. And it's just, you know, it's a weird connection between Rob Lowe and me, but, you know, there it is, so.
Oh no, that sounded like it deserved more explanation.
What? No, I just explained it in
Okay.
front. I spent like an hour. Everyone's bored. Like, fucking what? You know? No. Magic. Hollywood magic. Malibu magic.
I hope we're not going to lose you to London for too long.
No, 3 months.
So we're going to have to come
3
back.
months. No, I know to come back. You know, LA is my lady. I come back.
Courtney, we are so grateful for you.
Thanks
to
for
come
having me,
back.
guys.